"Hello, Harwich," the big man greeted loudly. "You look surprised to see me here. Well, I'm just as up in the air as you are, to find you around. How come? You see, I've been financing Paul Arnold's researches since old John was killed. Has Polly talked you into some part in the great miracle hunt on Io, too?" "Hello yourself, Bailey," the patrol man returned in not too friendly a tone. "Yes, I've joined up." Harwich was a little more than surprised to see the fat printer here. He didn't like the setup at all. Not that he had anything definite against George Bailey. The latter had always seemed good-natured and honest, except for some elusive trace of insincerity in his manner, his voice, and his little squinted eyes. Was this the kind of man for Paul Arnold to choose as a patron, particularly when he was in pursuit of the incredibly advanced science which must exist on Io? A science that might benefit the human race immeasurably, or might result in wholesale destruction and confusion, if it was wrongly and selfishly used. Evan Harwich couldn't have answered yes or no to this question. There was a painful pause in the conversation. Harwich found himself looking at the girl, who had entered with the big printer, and to whose arms the latter clung with a kind of bearish possessiveness. She was small and dainty. Her blonde hair, combed back tightly, fitted her head like a cap. She was wearing a plain but tasteful black dress with a white collar. "Oh, I'm sorry," Paul Arnold exclaimed after a moment. "Clara, this is Evan Harwich of the patrol. Evan, this is my sister. I didn't tell you that I had a sister, did I?" The girl only nodded slightly, and smiled a warm, friendly little smile. But why did the big patrol pilot find her more attractive than any other girl he had ever seen? Perhaps mostly it was those wistful eyes of hers, not gold-flecked like her brother's, but clouded amber. They were mild and troubled and knowing. Maybe Clara Arnold's life, as the daughter of a martyred scientist, had made them like that. Harwich knew that he might conquer not only the forbidden moon, but the stars themselves, and still remember those eyes. "Now we all know each other," Bailey boomed. "We're one big happy family, or are we?" He looked at Harwich significantly, a definite scowl now crinkling his heavy brows. "Harwich," he added, "we appreciate your company a lot. Only we are engaged in some pretty serious business here, and it doesn't allow us to take in outsiders." For reasons of his own, Bailey was trying to get rid of the big patrol pilot. But Harwich was inclined to be very stubborn, naturally, and faint, pleading looks from both Clara and Paul Arnold made him doubly so, just at present. Harwich had the aspect of a very dangerous adversary in a physical encounter. His weathered features were far from beautiful, and at certain times he had a way of grinning that made him look like a good-natured devil with a hot pitchfork hid behind his back. He turned on that grin. "Now, what's in that package sticking out of your coat pocket, George?" he asked the fat printer breezily. "It's about the right size and shape to be the new GALLUN condenser we need. I was going to buy one myself, but seeing that you've already done so, we might as well go to work installing it in the penetrator apparatus." "Well, all right, Harwich," Bailey growled with some slight show of timidity. "As long as you're Paul's friend, I suppose you can stick around." "Thanks a lot, George," Harwich chuckled, as the printer set the package containing the precious GALLUN condenser on a work table. The patrol pilot was almost sure he heard faint sighs of relief from the two Arnolds, as Bailey backed down. Had they come to mistrust him too, since he had been financing them? Did they feel more at ease because he, Evan Harwich, whom Bailey could never bulldoze, was their partner now too? The spaceman wondered, and he couldn't help wondering something else. On Clara Arnold's left hand, there was a diamond gleaming. An engagement ring. Bailey's. The way the latter had clung to the girl's arm, it couldn't very well be anybody else's. Could Clara, quiet and beautiful, ever love the boisterous, paunchy printer? The Arnolds were a strange family, anyway. The son was ready to sacrifice his life in an effort to reach the forbidden moon, where his father's ashes lay entombed. The daughter? Might she not be of the same fanatical breed? Might she not be willing to marry Bailey so that he would supply funds for their experiments? For a moment, Evan Harwich felt a sharp, hurt ache deep in his heart. But he fought it down. All this was none of his business. And from a heavy glazed window slit in the ceiling of the laboratory room, a shaft of soft light from ugly Io, the forbidden moon, was stabbing down, appealing to his own adventurous nature. Paul had slipped on a pair of lab coveralls. He tossed another pair to the patrol pilot. "Come on. Let's get started, Evan," he urged pleasantly. "We've got a big job in front of us, and remember you said we'd get through with it before long." True to Harwich's predictions, the rearrangement of the energy barrage penetrator for far greater power than the original had possessed did not take really a lot of time. Within 40 hours after the patrol pilot's arrival at the lab, the task of installing the Arnold apparatus in the old spaceship RQ-257 was complete. The tests of the penetrator had been made and judged as successful as anyone could have hoped for. The spaceship stood ready there in the laboratory room, a slender, copper helix wrapped around its hull. "All set, eh?" George Bailey boomed jovially. "Got your emergency supply packs loaded aboard, too, eh? But you won't need them, boys," he added seriously. "You've got everything in your favor. And in 5 hours you'll be back here with Clara and me at the lab with a dandy story to tell." Bailey seemed honest and sincere now. Evan Harwich almost felt sheepish about the matter. Maybe he'd misjudged the big, bearish printer. Anyway, he watched his every move during the assembly and installation of the penetrator. Paul Arnold was whistling a little tune of confidence and exultation. Harwich's pulses beat happily, his thoughts on the enigma of the forbidden moon, that now must yield to the new energy barrage penetrator. Superscience there on Io. Unutterable wonders. Who could guess beforehand what the forbidden moon's vast screen of force was meant to bar from intrusion? But maybe they would soon know. Only Clara Arnold showed worry. There was a slight shadow in her amber eyes when she took Harwich's hand. "I suppose this is only a preliminary test flight to Io and back," she said. "Not much dangerous exploration. But please be careful," she pleaded. "Please be careful, Evan." The spaceman muttered a word of thanks. Evan. His first name. To have Clara Arnold use it like that might have given a new meaning to life. His heart was suddenly pounding very hard before he remembered that diamond on her left hand. She was promised to George Bailey. The girl and the printer retreated from the laboratory chamber, waving a farewell. The spaceship was sealed. The great exit doors in the ceiling of the lab opened wide, and the air rushed out. In another moment the RQ-257 was shooting skyward. In the night, among the welter of stars, huge Jupiter and his many satellites shone down on the Ganymedean deserts. The nose of the ship swung unerringly toward Io. The RQ-257, wrapped in its protecting halo of blue fire from the penetrator, struck the forbidden moon's tremendous, invisible envelope of energy, squarely. There was a snarling sound in the ship's interior. White sparks lanced through cold space beyond the windows of the cabin, as two opposed forces fought each other. But the RQ-257 bored on steadily. "We're going to make it, Paul," Harwich shouted through the reeking, dinning cabin. "Of course we are," young Arnold yelled back at him. "How could we fail?" The two men were on the brink of success. Then there was an abrupt, strident, angry snap from the vitals of the penetrator apparatus. Everything seemed to happen at once. The protecting blue aura outside the ship waxed and waned perilously. And whenever it waned, there was a grinding, crumpling sound, as of steel plating being crushed like so much paper in a giant's grip. Heat and the cindery pungence of scorched metal filled the cabin. Paul Arnold and Evan Harwich were frozen rigid with stunning, agonized paralysis as strange energy snapped into their bodies. In the jolting, erratic motion of the wounded spaceship, the two men were hurled from their feet like a pair of stiff wooden dolls. Rolling and tumbling, his vision half blinded, Harwich saw the metal walls of the cabin buckle and redden with heat as the craft floundered in that region of mysterious force and energy that heretofore had destroyed every ship that had attempted to reach Io. There was another growl from the protecting apparatus. In a flash of electricity, the side of the bakelite case that housed the GALLUN condenser exploded outward. At once the staggering penetrator quit completely. Its last shred of protecting force was gone. But that momentary hell had ended, too, with almost dazing suddenness. The grinding, snapping sounds had ceased, and there was only the heat and the stench of burnt metal, and the weightless sensation of free fall. That and the mocking stars. Paul Arnold, panting, his face darkened and beaded with perspiration, clutched a bakelite handrail in one corner. "We got through Io's energy barrage," he shouted wildly. "We did that much, at least, and for a moment, when our penetrator went wrong, I didn't think our luck would be even that good." Evan Harwich leered back at the youth from near the now useless apparatus that John Arnold had invented. "Yes, we got through," he grunted hoarsely. "The energy shell must be only a couple of thousand miles thick with free space underneath between it and Io itself. The GALLUN condenser kept working raggedly just long enough to get us out of the danger zone, without being completely blown apart. Harwich didn't have to test the controls of the ship to know that they were useless, now. The rockets were silent too. The RQ-257 was falling free toward the forbidden moon, still a couple of thousand miles beneath. "But damn it, Evan," young Arnold growled. "The GALLUN condenser shouldn't have quit on us at all. Those things are tested for heavy loads of power.